BodyBags, where horror lies.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Kaiju Week on BodyBags. I'm your Sunday host, Bourgie86 here again. Yes, guys, it's here, Kaiju Week, and it's finally done with my review. Yes, if you can tell, I actually chose this week, so I was very ecstatic to watch all the reviews of the films that I've seen over the years, and very ecstatic to see it went well with a lot of the co-hosts. A lot of them became fans of Godzilla and stuff in the making of this, and I'm very excited about that, and it's awesome. Of course, I'm not actually doing a Godzilla film today, which is kind of weird and ironic at the same time. Even when I'm thinking about it right now, I'm not doing a Godzilla film, but this film is Godzilla related. I'll get more into that in a minute. This film, of course, is from 1958, and it goes by the title of Varan, the Unbelievable, also known by its other title, Kaiju Varan, which, of course, this film is directed by Ishiro Honda. If you don't know who he is, he's pretty much what George A. Romero is to the zombie genre. Ishiro Honda is that to the Kaiju genre. He is the father of Kaiju films, pretty much. Of course, with his first film, Godzilla, which was an epic classic. Of course, if you haven't seen our Monday host's review of that film, he actually reviewed Gojira that day, and of course went on to direct numerous films in the kaiju subgenre, of course including other Godzilla films, but he also created other monsters in that well, and including Mothra and Rodan, and Varan was one of them. Now, interesting story about this one is this film actually didn't start out as a feature-length film. It actually started out as a made-for-TV, two-part mini-series type deal that Toho was producing with another company. But what ended up happening was the other company ended up going under, and it decided to reshoot certain scenes and re-edit and redo some of the soundtrack to make it into a feature-length film, which I found very interesting when watching this film. Now, the main plot of this one, we're introduced to our main setup. Pretty much, this government agency with scientists end up trying to find this very rare species of butterfly. So they send to scientists out to this village area near this weird graded out lake. The lake's surrounded by mountains and hills and all that. So they end up going there and researching and trying to find this rare species of butterfly, but what ends up happening is they end up being warned that their god would come and destroy them if they stop and tamper with his resting place. So what ends up happening is they end up going there and getting killed. So there's this news articles going around that a god has killed these two people. So they go to investigate more, and one of the main characters of the film, Kenji, is not buying that it's a god type thing. He's I don't believe in that stuff, to the shaman of this village. So they end up finding out that it's actually this giant varanopod known as Varan that's living in this lake, and it comes out and awakens and starts terrorizing this village and destroys it. So Kenji and the two reporters end up going back to the scientists, and they end up finding a way to try to stop Varan. And that's pretty much the main thing, is the military trying to stop Varan before he ends up getting more into Tokyo and destroying the city. That is pretty much the main plot of this one, without going too crazy into it. Now, my thoughts on this film. From the beginning and opening with Akira Ifukube's main score of this film, you're suck into it, because Ifukube's scores are for kaiju films. They're very epic in essence, and his score to Varan is one of his best, in my opinion. It sets the dark nature of what's going to happen and what's going on with Varan as a character. And Varan himself is just an interesting looking kaiju, because he starts, when you first introduce to him, he's like a quadruped. he could walk on all fours, but then unbeknownst, he could actually start walking in twos. And I found that very interesting. He keeps like surprising the shit out of the people that are trying to stop him, and that goes more into like what he can do in like this film. If of course, Varan has a little surprise in this film. If you haven't seen this, he has like this weird, like epic, like thing that happens with him where he gets like extra skin underneath his arms, and he ends up flying. Yes, he ends up flying out of the mountain and stuff, and it goes crazy and batshit because they don't even know what the fuck to expect now. These government officials, and this the way that they get down and trying to stop Varan, and they do come up with like a scheme to try to stop him at the very end, but it's a very interesting aspect of that, and I did enjoy it for what it was with that aspect. E.G. Super Riders special effects is what sells this, is like the Varan costume itself. Very active, like, especially with the actor performing in it, because he has to act like this creature, and he does a terrific job because it is an actor pretty much acting as this. And I do like that aspect that it's an actor in a suit doing a performance. And that's the way I take like these giant kaiju films, their performances. So it was a very interesting performance because of the things that Varan does in this film, and you don't expect to do. So it worked for my benefit as a film, and it has a very dark tone, this film, especially like I said with its score. And there are a few like death scenes, some off camera, but you get that with like these kaiju films, of course. Really cool like special effects, like I said, and the musical soundtrack is elegant with like actually the very interesting thing is Varan's theme actually gets adapted to Rodin's theme in later films, like that do 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 do, which I really didn't like. Was mind blown that Rodin's like newer theme before like the Rodin film is Varan's actual real theme. And another aspect is Varan only appeared in another film after this, which was Destroy All Monsters, and it was pretty much a puppet on like a string, and it was only on screen for like 5 seconds. So it was kind of a shame that he didn't get like the higher budget, even though he had his own film and shit, that he didn't get the respect that like some of the other monsters did, like Mothra and Rodin, of course, and Gillis. But highly enjoyable kaiju film. If you haven't seen Varan, I highly recommend this. Of course, this edition by Tokyo Shock is out of print, which is the only way to see the film in full its Asian glory with like the Japanese version, because this was cut in the US and butchered pretty much, because in the American version, which isn't going to be a spoiler because I did mention it, Varan doesn't actually fly in the American version. So if you've seen that version, you'll never get to see that scene and the epicness of a lot of other things. That's why I'm glad that I got to review the full Japanese version of this film. That's a kaiju classic in my opinion. If I had to rate it, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. It just was one of those well done Ishiro Honda masterpieces in my opinion of cinema, and hopefully one day that this version of this film will get another release, and I hope so soon. So Varan, 9.5 out of 10, awesomeness. Alright guys, that's it for this review, and that's it for Kaiju Week. I hope you enjoyed it, and who never knows, we might do Kaiju Week Part 2 sometime. So I'll see you then, peace out.